Hi everyone, I wanted to take a second and shoot a quick video about a study that I've seen making the rounds of the internet. It came out, I believe, on the 9th of May 2019, so fairly recently. And then in that short period of time since the study itself came out, I've seen a couple of different articles, courtesy of social media and a couple of other places. So I want to just talk about it because the article is on negative experiences in meditation. Basically, a group of researchers got together and studied, or I guess surveyed, a little over 1,200 people online and asked them, have they ever had a bad experience in meditation? And so I just kind of wanted to give you my thoughts because my concern here is that this idea of, oh, here's all this bad stuff that could happen in meditation could get really blown out of proportion, I guess. So the first thing I want to say is that I'm not attempting in any way, shape, form, or fashion to discredit the research that was done. I read the study itself. I will put a link down in the comments to both the study and then a couple of articles that talk about the study so you can read it for yourself. I'm not in any way trying to discredit what the researchers have done. All I want to do is kind of give my perspective on what they came up with and maybe where some of the issues are and go from there. These are my opinions. Take them for what they're worth. If you don't want to hear it, just stop the video, give me a thumbs down, do whatever, but it's just my opinion. So the biggest thing was, or I guess the main finding from the report is that 25% of all the people that they polled had experienced some kind of negative event during meditation. And they studied, and I'm not sure, I'll have to go back and double check this in terms of the exact wording, but they talk about seasoned meditators or people that have been meditating for a while, which they identify as anybody that's been meditating over 2 months, which to me, for somebody who's been practicing Zen for a long time, or at least what I feel like is a long time, but is nothing compared to some people, 2 months is just scratching the surface. You're just now trying to figure out how your butt fits on the cushion, let alone like any kind of deep understanding of what you're doing or why you're doing it. So anyway, they found out that 25% of people had some negative experience and that men tended to have it more than women and that the non-religious tended to have them more than the religious and a couple of other interesting little bits of statistics. The first comment I want to make is I find that number to be extremely low, to be perfectly frank, because if, in my belief, if you've been sitting with any level of consistency and I guess authenticity, meaning that you're sitting really intently every day, or even every other day, or something like that, stuff is going to happen at some point, shape, form, or fashion, both good and bad. One of the major, I guess, criticisms of the study, and this is pointed out both in their work and also in many of the commentaries about their work, that they don't check and talk about severity. They also don't go in and talk about whether or not any of the people who had experienced any kind of negative situations had any kind of pre-existing condition. So were they, fit to be meditating before they started meditating? So kind of one of the weird parts about the studies that are being done on meditation these days is that unlike things like exercise, for example, we don't have this huge canon of research. If you went out and just polled people and said, have you ever gotten hurt from working out, and you didn't take into account, had they been working out before, had they have bad knees or anything like that, you'd probably get pretty alarming statistics about the number of people that get injured on some level, injured from working out. So once again, I think this number is probably pretty low when you start to think about the fact that if you're meditating seriously over time, you probably will have something come up. And remember, negative event or negative experience or negative occurrence wasn't taken into account in terms of how massively it happened. So what it was, it could just be, my butt itched the whole time and it wouldn't stop itching. For me personally, in terms of negative experiences during meditation, on a recent trip to Zen Mountain, I put a nice little knot in the muscles in my back and spent at least a couple of 30-minute meditation sessions feeling like somebody was sticking a knife between my ribs. So yeah, you could definitely call that a negative experience. In terms of negative mental experiences, I've had all kinds of stuff come up. I've had, maybe not a panic attack, but I've definitely had anxieties come up. I've had, lots of negative self-talk and all this other kind of stuff. But one of the things that I really want to point out here is that's kind of what meditation is about, okay? It's about being in a place that's controlled and safe and allowing whatever needs to come up to come up. Because there are really two sides to meditation. I think this is one of the big things that gets missed in the modern Western US pop version of meditation. Everybody looks at this idea of calming and concentration, what in Pali is called samatha. It's this idea of, calming the mind, feeling better, getting more centered, getting more focused. And that's really important. That's a really good foundation. And when we talk about mindfulness in terms of like stress reduction and whatnot, this is kind of paramount. This is a big deal. Calming down, becoming more focused. But the second component that gets left out a lot of times is the other piece, which is vipassana or insight. In the Zen tradition, we don't really draw a distinction between these two. We talk about zazen, which is arguably not even a meditation technique, but I won't get into that whole argument right now. But vipassana is about insight. So once you're calm, focused, and collected, what are you noticing? What's coming up? What insights are happening for you about what's going on? And one of the really cool things about meditation is you can see that your thoughts are just thoughts. The stuff that's going on in your head is just the stuff that's going on in your head. One day you're sitting and you're meditating and you're blissed out yogi having wonderful, visions of, five-armed dancing Krishnas or whatever. And the next minute you're, beating yourself up about how you're not meditating properly and how everything goes to crap and all this kind of stuff, all the bad things in your life. Maybe sometimes, and this happens to me, and I'm sure it happens to other meditators, you're just sitting there fantasizing about everything you possibly could be fantasizing about. Winning the lottery or, becoming an enlightened spiritual guru or whatever. It's just the stuff going on in your head. And that's part of it. And meditation and, zazen or, vipassana or any of these meditation techniques create a safe space. So when this stuff does come up, when the negativity happens, when, the bad stuff does occur, you're in a safe space. You could have these massive issues of, oh my God, the world is coming to an end and all this kind of stuff. And then you remind yourself, I'm just sitting on the cushion. I'm just sitting here meditating. There's nothing that can hurt me. It's about opening yourself up to the experiences, the fullness of your experiences of your life. So if you're sitting and all of a sudden you have this, thought pop into your head of, I should go shoot the president, it's just a thought, and you see it and you notice it, and then it goes away. And it comes in and goes out. Shunryu Suzuki Roshi used to say that, your thoughts are like guests. Bring them in and say hi to them, be nice to them, but don't serve them tea. So bring them in and let them go. It's I've also heard the metaphor of a house party. You bring them in, you say hi to everybody, and then you just kind of let them go out the other side. So in a lot of cases we talk about mindfulness having essentially three major components. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I don't want this video to get too long. But Jon Kabat-Zinn would say, paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So, or you might hear like intention, attention, and attitude, or sometimes the way it's broken down. But the big piece here is equanimity. And this is kind of what relates back to this negative experience thing. It's this idea of equanimity. Seeing both the good and the bad for what they are, just thoughts, not judging them, not saying, oh, I shouldn't be having these thoughts of this, or oh, this shouldn't be happening to me, but just letting it happen. So, from that pure position of equanimity, there is no good or bad. There is no positive or negative. It's just a thought. And so scary stuff happens and this, that, and the other, and it's just a thought, and you just let it happen. Now, the other thing I want to say, just to be 100% upfront on this, is I'm also not saying that really crazy, terrible stuff does not happen to people in meditation. You can check out the Dark Night Project, which talks about a lot of people having these just very intense, very crazy experiences in meditation. I would argue that probably some of this is people pushing themselves too hard, too fast, too soon. Um, and that for the general average person, you're not going to have these experiences. But that's not to say these experiences don't happen. So please don't take me as saying that, if you meditate and nothing bad is ever going to happen to you, or if bad stuff happens, it's just minor. Just like with exercise, you need to consider your history. You need to consider, what techniques you're being taught and by whom, and what support structure you have to deal with this kind of stuff if something does occur. Definitely, if you're going to get into meditation, find a friend, a teacher preferably, one from an established tradition, a guide, a mentor, somebody you can talk to so that when something does come up, somebody can talk to you about it and kind of help you assess it and deal with it. So I guess those are just kind of my thoughts on the situation. I feel like that it's good that this research is being done, and one of the major findings I really applaud the researchers for is this idea that this is like we need to do more research on this, and this is really important stuff. Um, I would encourage everybody to check out the meditation techniques, reach out to me or someone else. If you want to know more about it and this, that, and the other, please give it a try. Please keep at it and try to treat yourself with a level of compassion and tolerance and equanimity. Try to befriend your mind and your thoughts. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful in some level. Like I said, I'll link some articles and the research itself in the comments below. Thank you for your time and attention, and I hope to talk to everyone soon.